This podcast is about introducing our fans to the animals, plants, and other products that we work with at Josh's Frogs. It's an opportunity to paint a picture of our hobby that is refreshing. We want you guys to be successful with the animals that you're keeping, and we want our hobby to grow ethically and sustainably into the future. Welcome to the Josh's Frogs podcast. Today I got Amelia. We're going to talk about Solomon Island leaf frogs. But before we do that, I want to let you know that the Josh's Frogs podcast is brought to you by Josh's Frogs. We're your one-stop shop for everything you need to take care of your reptile and amphibian friends. So we do everything from the feeder bugs to the live plants to the substrates and caging and lighting and all that kind of stuff. And then we also have customer service agents available to answer your questions. And then we have tons of videos and blogs. We want to make you successful with keeping those animals. So we're trying to support you in that. So check us out, joshsfrogs.com. And without further ado, this is Amelia, and we're going to talk about SILFs. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about what you do here at Josh's Frogs and how long you've been doing it.
I'm a tree frog and toad keeper here at Josh's, and I've been here for 2.5, going on 3 years now. Mostly day-to-day animal care, some special projects like setting things up to get them to breed. Get to watch them grow the whole egg to tadpole to adults sometimes even, and it's really satisfying and rewarding to get to follow those animals throughout their life stages. Except these guys don't actually have tadpoles, so one less with the SILFs.
Cool. And tell us a little bit about what you kept, what animals you were keeping before you worked at Josh's Frogs.
Before at Josh's Frogs, didn't have a whole lot of exotics. I'd had in the past like the occasional like gecko or frog or whatever when I was younger. Definitely stuff that I would be doing a better job with if I had the knowledge that I had now. Just kind of, real basic cats and dogs. And I did have scorpion and toad when I hired in here.
Oh, cool.
And now I have like toads and frogs in the 20s and tarantulas in the 20s. And but I still have that original scorpion and toad in the collection, though.
Oh, cool. All right. Tell us a little bit about SILFs. Can I explain those to somebody who might not be familiar with that type of frog? Describe them and give us a little rundown on what they're like.
So the SILF, if we haven't already explained that acronym here, stands for Solomon Island leaf frogs. It's a little bit of a mouthful, so we abbreviate it. They're these very kind of angular, squat kind of frogs, very triangle shaped, that are called leaf frogs because they sort of rely on mimicking fallen leaf litter for their camouflage. They bury themselves down in the dirt and get in amongst the leaves, and they've got this very rough kind of outline that breaks up their shape. Some of them even have really intricate patterning on their bodies that looks like leaf veins and stuff like that, lichen and whatnot. So they're really, really well disguised. Actually, a few different groups of frogs that are called leaf frogs for various reasons, behaviorally or appearance-wise. We've got 3 different categories of leaf frogs, actually, here at Josh's Frogs. We've got our agnolicnus, like our red-eyed tree frogs. We've got Crusiohyla that we're hoping to breed at some point here, and then we've got the SILFs. And they're ambush predators. They will jump away really far, really fast when you disturb them, but for the most part, they're very nocturnal and they're very much sit and wait kind of animals.
Cool. Now, they look a little pointy. Are they sharp, or is that more of a camouflage type of?
Actually, yes. So the little horn eyebrow thingies they have, the little tip on their snout, those are soft and flexible. But actually, they do have some points on the back of the jawbone that make it harder for a predator to swallow them if they do manage to get that really wide head into their mouth. And if you pick up the frog and you end up squeezing it on the sides of the head, you can actually feel that sharp point of bone through the skin.
Oh, wow. Cool. Talk a little bit about colors. Like, what are the different colors that you can see in SILFs? What's the range?
There's pretty much as big of a range as you can imagine, like fallen leaves having. There's not really a lot of specific names, I don't think, for the
Hmm.
colors. Like morphs, it's not like, your crested geckos, your ball pythons, where those things are really clearly defined. But we've seen them in yellows, greens, grays, tans, chocolate brown, brick red. Actually kind of like a lichen pattern that has a mix of gray and green modeled all over it. There's lots of different colors, but unfortunately the tan does seem to be kind of dominant when we've bred everything with a tan parent. Most of the babies do come out tan, which is a little bit lackluster for just a pet, but it works well in the wild, so that's why it just keeps on popping up.
That's cool. That's cool. Now, they with those different colors, is there an issue with them being toxic? I know in certain frogs that can be an issue. Is that an issue with SILFs as well too?
Not really. I've looked into it, haven't been able to find anything in particular about toxicity. I would imagine, like most frogs, they probably got some level of like an unpleasant taste if you were to go and try and bite into one. But I don't know that they're at all particularly dangerous
Cool.
to handle to pets, anything like that. The color is it's not aposematic. It's just for camouflage.
Cool. Now, talk a little bit about, you talked about some other leaf frogs. Can you compare and contrast like how keeping them is different than keeping SILFs? Like, what are the differences between those types of leaf frogs and other frogs that might be common for people to keep?
Well, gosh, the examples I gave there with the red-eyed tree frog and the Crusiohyla are very different types of frogs. Those are tree frog type frogs, so going to want a really arboreal setup, lots of big broad leaves, and they're going to hang out on those leaves, and that's where the name comes from with those particular varieties. The SILFs are totally terrestrial. You're going to want a more of a horizontal space. We usually recommend something like an 18 by or 36 by 18 by 18, 36 inches long, and then 18 inches wide and high for a group of like 1 to 3 frogs, and that's because you wouldn't think they would necessarily need a ton of space, being really terrestrial, really nocturnal, but they do have a pretty impressive leaping ability, so want to give them space that if they do get spooked or just kind of, I don't know, get the zoomies or something, they want to jump around, that they're not going to be hitting themselves and getting injured. So have that set up with it's like some simple hides and stuff. We use a lot of cork flats. We can get one that's just got a little bit of an arch to it to give them a little bit of a gap. That's great. Sometimes they'll use plastic hides, but they do seem to prefer flat pieces of bark that they can really wedge themselves under there tight. And throw in some leaf litter if you want for the natural experience.
Cool. You talked a little bit about the size of 36, 18, 18. How big is a SILF when we're starting to sell them, and then how big do they get full grown?
So when we're selling them, be a little bit bigger than like a thumbnail, like an inch long or so. Not very big. By the time they're fully grown in a couple of years, then the females are going to be significantly larger than the males. They're going to be more like a baseball size, kind of. The reason that we say like 1 to 3 frogs for that size enclosure, it's also kind of some specific sex ratios that we recommend. The females are more powerful than the males. Since they're so much larger, they can actually get kind of aggressive with them if they're getting bothered too much. So we don't want to put in more than one female with a male. That can be potentially dangerous situation for them. So usually what we keep them in is like either a bachelorette group of non-breeding adults that has like 1 to 3 either males or females, or else when we set them up to breed, we'll most of the time do a pair, just one male, one female, and sometimes we'll throw in an extra male in there, but never multiple females with a male.
That's quite a bit different than how we treat most other animals.
Yes, definitely. Most of the other frogs, you want them to breed. You want as big of a group as you can comfortably fit in that space, and you want lots of males, but also lots of females. And the SILFs are very different in that way. They'll find their mate who's in their tank and get right to laying eggs when they're at that point in their breeding cycle. The males and the females will both call so that they can find each other. The males do it a lot more, a lot louder, but the females, you can actually hear them giving little return calls
Wow.
to communicate. And they sound like a little chihuahua. They sound like a barking dog, and it's quite loud and very unusual for a frog.
Now, these guys are nocturnal, so
Yep.
are you hearing the calling during the day, or does it tend to be during the evening, or during the breeding will you hear it all the time?
It's mostly at night. A lot of times
Yeah.
after we shut off the lights, that's when you'll start to hear it, especially if you've misted really heavily, or especially right after a substrate change when everything looks and smells and feels just a little bit new for them. And they're wanting to kind of reestablish their territory, make sure everybody's still where they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and again, you'll hear it a little bit during the day, but definitely for the most part during the evening. And they can breed year round. Sometimes they'll take a few months off to kind of take a rest, but they don't really have a super strict breeding season in captivity.
Cool. They're a little bit unique in how they breed. Can you explain that process and how we get the froglets out of the Solomon Island leaf frogs?
Yeah, for sure. So the Solomon Island leaf frog is what's known as a direct developer. They don't actually have a tadpole stage. This is because of the lack of standing water where they're from in the wild. So they will go and bury a bunch of eggs down into the substrate, and then about 4 to 6 weeks later, those will hatch into little tiny froglets. If you're familiar with like bubble tea, the eggs are very much the same kind of size and consistency of the boba pearls. So we go through, we do that once a month substrate change, and that helps us keep the tanks clean and also make sure that we're not missing any of the eggs, because they'll usually lay about once a month. Go through, carefully comb through that substrate in any tanks that have breeding groups. A lot of times they'll like to lay where the soil is kind of the most damp, where they're kind of under something for protection. In the wild, they would be breeding usually around the bases of trees. And once we found an egg clutch, or 2 or 3 sometimes even, pull those out. We'll take a bin of damp sphagnum moss. We use these gallon size round plastic bins with lids that we can pop on the top, and set all of those eggs in the sphagnum, put the lid on it, label it, and just set it in a place and check on it until the little ones hatch in a few weeks. Don't really require any kind of special temperature, humidity, anything like that monitoring, as long as they're set up in an area with an appropriate temperature and the sphagnum is moist. We keep these guys usually like mid to high 70s. They can handle up to 85, but usually high 70s is the optimal temperature for adults and eggs and juveniles.
How large are they when they come out of that egg? Like that little egg is pretty tiny. How small is that?
Itty bitty. They are like the size of a pea.
Really? Wow.
Yep. But they're still pretty athletic, even right out of the egg. Within just like a few hours, you go and you try and pick them up, and they'll be hopping away from you real fast.
That's cool. And what are you feeding them right out of the egg?
Right out of the egg, they're getting pinhead crickets. Could potentially use something like melanogaster or fruit flies, but those do climb. The frogs do not. So the crickets will stay more where they can actually access them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're so nocturnal, even the babies, it's best to feed your SILFs as late as possible in the day so that they're actually getting that food while it's been freshly gut loaded, while it's been freshly supplemented. We dust our feeders for the SILFs with calcium, vitamin supplements, just like any other frog we work with. And that's our typical schedule of Rapashi Calcium Plus every feeding. And then we rotate in the Rapashi Vitamin A once a month as well.
Cool. Now, any last advice you want to give to people for keeping them, or things to watch out for, or issues that might crop up, or things to keep in mind when you're keeping SILFs?
Oh, gosh. I think I covered most of the big ones that people don't necessarily think about as far as the big things that are kind of unique for maintaining the SILFs would be the don't overhydrate them with standing water, keep them real clean, feed them later at night. You don't necessarily have to do a lot of active misting so much as long as that humidity and moisture in the substrate is staying at an appropriate level, looking for like 50 to 70% humidity. And then our kind of rule of thumb for keeping that substrate damp enough is you want to be able to take a handful, give it a squeeze, and then when you release, have finger marks left in the substrate, but no dripping water coming out.
Cool.
And yeah, they're a little bit more advanced. Just kind of got to know what to look for as far as making sure that they're well fed. If they're breeding, then you want to keep an eye on making sure that you're pulling out any eggs before they hatch, because then they absolutely can and will eat the babies because they just look like just another little brown thing hopping around. Could be a cricket. I don't know. I'm just going to go for it.
That's cool. That's cool. Awesome. Thank you, Amelia, for educating us on the Solomon Island leaf frog.
And we do sell the substrate that we use in-house for these guys. You kind of get that on our website to get the same blend that we use. It's got like cocoa fiber and orchid bark and stuff like that, and it's a texture that they really like.
Cool. Awesome. All right, we're going to move to the lightning round. Give us the first answer that comes to your mind, and you can skip a question if you're like, hey, I have no idea what an answer is, but just give us the first thing that comes to your mind, all right? If money and space were no issue, what's your dream pet?
Okay, last time I think I said emus, which are still really cool. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to add to that list. It would be really cool to do some kind of really neat, like large-scale active reptile kind of a setup. I'm definitely more of an amphibian person, but got some interest in the reptile side of things too. And I don't know, something like say an indigo snake or whatever someday, something that's really big and active. If I had all the space to give it a really nice enclosure, that would be awesome to get to just observe at home.
All right, besides Josh's Frogs, what's a brand in the hobby that's producing really cool products, or a breeder that's producing some really cool animals? Who would you like to give a shout out to?
Trying to not say exactly what I said last time. Like, oh boy, who all is doing stuff that I've purchased from lately? See, not necessarily a frog thing, but I have bought invertebrates from a place, Exotics Unlimited, a few times.
Cool.
We're coming up on the March Tinley Park Expo as we're filming this here, and I've pre-ordered some really neat new rare spiders to pick up from them that I'm very, very excited about. So if you're into especially rare tarantulas and things like that, they've got a really awesome selection. Cool.
All right. What was your first pet you ever had?
First pet that was my own probably would have been a goldfish, like a lot of folks.
Fun. All right. What in the whole entire world, what's your favorite animal or plant? What's the coolest creature or plant on this planet?
Oh, no. I was just saying that's such a hard question for me. Well, shoot. I'd probably have to give that one a little bit more thought. But I can say as far as coolest animal that I've worked with in the past, I think my favorite would probably have to be the black rhinoceros. I worked with those during my first internship, and those were a lot of fun.
Cool. All right. Well, what do you want to, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a baker. I still really love to bake, but I do not think I would be able to handle the hours that those folks have to keep.
Don't want to get up at 2 a.m.
No, I do not.
Stuff. All right. You have a free hour. No one's bothering you. You can do whatever you want. What are you doing with that free time in 1 hour?
Oh, probably going online. I don't know. Go on Tumblr, read a book, paint my nails, something like that.
Right.
Go for a walk if it's a nice day out.
Yep.
I was definitely doing that yesterday. It was real sunny, really pleasant.
Cool. All right. Last question, probably the hardest one. You had a bunch of people listening to you. What's one piece of advice you would give them, or one reminder that you would give them?
All right. Well, that one I'm still going to keep the same, I think. Don't take things too seriously. Try and relax. That's easier said than done, but I've spent a lot of time taking everything way too seriously and didn't really come out ahead for it. give yourself space to do what's best for you.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Amelia. If you follow us on social media, you'll see Amelia on a lot of our shorts and videos and lives and that kind of stuff. And then she's got her hands in a lot of the different amphibians that we breed here at Josh's Frogs. So anytime you are reading any of our articles or seeing some of that kind of stuff, a lot of that stuff's coming from Amelia. So thanks a lot, Amelia, for dropping some knowledge on SILFs, and hope people will give them a try. Thanks a lot. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoy this content and want to stay up to date, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us across social media. We always want to bring you the best content, so let us know what you think in the comments. And for all your reptile and amphibian needs, be sure to check us out at joshsfrogs.com. We have an amazing selection. Until next time, stay curious, stay froggy, and keep exploring.